Okay, it's going.
What works best in learning? Is there one right way that we should be all looking for? Education icon Dr. John Hattie shares insight on visible learning next.
That's right. Today we have Professor John Hattie, who is a researcher in education. His research interests include performance indicators, models of measurement, and evaluation of teaching and learning. John Hattie became known to a wider public audience with his two books, Visible Learning and Visible Learning for Teachers. Visible Learning is a synthesis of more than 800 meta-studies covering more than 80 million, that's a million with an M, I guess it's not 80 billion, right? 80 million students. According to John Hattie, visible learning is the result of 15 years of research about what works best for learning in schools. TES once called him possibly the world's most influential education academic. John Hattie has been director of the Melbourne Educational Research Institute at the University of Melbourne, Australia since March of 2011. Formerly a professor of education at the University of Auckland in New Zealand, Dr. Hattie earned a PhD from the University of Toronto in Canada.
Hi, Tim and Scott.
Welcome to the show, Dr. Hattie. Thank you so much for joining us. So why don't you get us started for those in the audience? I mean, one of our main concerns and one of the reasons we really wanted to have you on is to make sure that teachers out there were familiar with your work, because it's very, very important, I believe, for teachers to know what you are espousing based on your research. So why don't you just give a quick rundown on what you're all about?
When I met many people in the teacher business and the teacher education business and the academic business, and they all told me what was truth. They all told me what worked. And it tended to be along the lines of just watch me and you'll see it works. And it didn't make sense to me that everything works. Like, I'm sure every viewer out there has had teachers, and we know how incredibly variable they are, but you'd never know that from the literature. And so what I started to do is to say, could I come up with relative influences? What works better than other things? And that got me going on a 15-year journey of collecting data. And I'm up to about 250 million students now, trying to answer that question, are there relative effects? And probably the thing that surprised me most is virtually everything that we do to kids enhances their learning to some degree. So it's perhaps not surprising that every teacher can provide evidence that how they teach works. Every politician can find evidence for any policy. Of course it works, because almost everything works. And so part of my mission is to change that very low threshold, can we change kids' learning, to can we change it substantially? And that led to the second part, which was, what is the main story about the substantial differences we can make compared to the average and below average effects?
Great. So can you tell us what some of those most effective things are?
Yeah, well, let me start at the bottom end. The ones that have the below average effects, they're mainly to do with structural things. Like the con, we tell parents that they have the right to choose schools. Well, the difference between schools, particularly in your country, is very, very small. Two kids of the same ability, it almost doesn't matter what school they go to. And it is a distraction because we don't let them choose what really matters, the teachers. A lot of the curriculum issues, the assessment issues, the shape of the school buildings, the class size, the ability grouping, they're all well below average. What's above average? Teacher expertise. And that's my main mission, is to reliably identify those teachers who have the high impact, build a coalition around them, and merely invite the others to join them. And that's what we've been doing for the last 10 to 15 years in a number of schools throughout the world. It requires a spine, because quite often we won't identify excellence. Instead, we identify experience, which isn't the same thing in teaching. Sometimes we have all these claims about how you can't identify good teachers because it depends on the kids and the money and the resources and the curriculum. Well, it's a bit like watching the US Open at the moment. You know, Roger Federer, he may not win every game, but he sure is someone that I'd back for expertise. It's the same with teachers. There's teachers out there who have incredible expertise. And if only people in your country could stop looking to Shanghai and Finland and look around them and see success all around them, we'd have a pretty good education system.
Wow, well said, Dr. Hattie. Thank you. So when we identify those teachers with the expertise, how do we put them in positions of influence or positions where they can impact education at a broader scale?
Well, yeah, that's the key work, and this is where school leaders become important, about making sure that they have a narrative in their school about asking, what does impact mean? What does a year's growth for a year's input mean? Because one of the things you soon discover is that it's so common within a school for teachers to have totally different views about what the notion of impact means. And impact isn't as simple as test scores, but it does include them. It does include student voice. It does include observing the teacher impact in the classroom. It does include the understanding the moment-by-moment decisions that teachers make about learning. And that requires collaboration. And that's one of the top things in the whole of the exercises, is this notion that teachers collaborate with each other. And that's where we need good principals to do this, and not have them worry only about the school bus timetables and all the other peripheral things, which have to be dealt with, but they aren't important.
Now, when you say collaborate, do you mean discuss things together, or are you talking about instructional rounds, like where teachers are going into each other's classrooms and observing? Do you know, is there any data that says there's a difference?
You've got to be careful there, Tim, because quite a lot of that instructional rounds and the going into classrooms isn't very productive. Like, I think it's a sin to go into a classroom and watch another teacher teach. Because all you end up doing is telling that teacher how they should teach like you. But we spend a lot of time going into classrooms and watching the impact of the teacher on the students. We watch the students and teaching students how to do that. So teaching teachers how to do that, creating time for them to talk about what they mean by impact, what their evidence of impact is. Is it good enough? Now, these are all high resource problems because it does require time, but getting them away, like the most anal study we ever did. We went into schools and we measured what teachers talked about at lunch, morning teas, before school, professional development. They talk about the kids, the curriculum, the tests, kicking footballs. 1 minute a month, they talk about teaching, even less about the impact of teaching. Yes, I do want that discussion.
Wow. So, Dr. Hattie, when we are looking at the kids and the influence, and we are focused on that, what is it that we're trying to see?
Well, the thing we want to see is, firstly, asking ourselves, do the students understand? Can they talk about what the content of the lesson is? Do they have sufficient vocabulary about the content of the lesson? Then you want to go the next step and ask how they relate ideas. Now, if you're going to do that, it requires incredible amount of trust, because most classrooms, you actually don't hear kids thinking aloud. Most staff rooms, you don't hear teachers thinking aloud. And so you have to build trust up to do that. But yes, we do want to hear, because certainly the major claim I'm making is that teachers need to see learning through the eyes of the students, not through their eyes. Because like all us humans, we're very selective about what we remember, and that's not good enough. We're very selective at remembering the positive things, and that's not good enough. So I want to interview the students. I want to talk to them about what they mean. I want to privilege errors, because all learning is a function of us making mistakes, what we don't know. When was the last time you walked into a classroom and heard kids talking about the errors they had? It doesn't happen enough, but that's what we need to worry about. Otherwise, the kids learn very quickly. Be quiet, be passive, look busy, look at the teacher, and that's not learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you want to see classrooms where the kids are doing a lot of talking.
And I think they need to be taught to do that. Yes.
So is there a voice that comes from kids through things like standardized testing? Are we in the wrong field that way, or should we be looking to something like that?
Well, my background, you said I had my degree from University of Toronto. I'm in measurement. I'm a psychometrician. So how could I not like tests? But the problem is, like, we developed the New Zealand assessment scheme, and we started from the premise that the assessment is feedback to teachers. Mm. The minute you think, as your country does, that feedback is assessment to students, all those bad, perverse things happen. Like, kids are incredibly good predictors of how they're going to perform. You don't need to give them a test. But I certainly see a major benefit if tests are created to give feedback to teachers. And it's very hard to see it happening. It's not happening with your current systems that you have in the US. And I think I'm very proud of the fact that in New Zealand, it's a voluntary system. 80% of teachers in our elementary and a high school are still using the system 15 years later because it reports back to them about their impact. And that's the benefit of assessment. But unfortunately, so many countries, including yours, have got it wrong. You think that tests are about putting thermometers up into kids to find out what their temperature is. And it misses the point. So I think it's a tremendous place for assessment if teachers think and we develop assessments to feed back to teachers about their impact, particularly over time.
Yeah, and I think a lot of teachers in the U.S. especially feel that way. Especially, we get these results back that we don't even know what's on the test really, and it's just not used. So what should we be looking to for the future as far as possible changes? I know you have a book coming out called Visible Learning in Action. What should we be looking to as far as the actions we need to take as educators?
And certainly the new book you mentioned, we're highlighting 15 case studies, including a couple from your country, of schools that have been going through the program that we've been putting in place now in around 5,000 to 7,000 schools throughout the world. And the beauty of it is that, like in my modest moments, I think one of the things I've discovered is the fact that success is out there. Wow, what a surprise that is. And premised it on the fact that you start by recognizing that success where it is in your school. And nearly every school in the country has pockets of success. And so we start there. We try and get away from the whiff of accountability that's so strong in many Western countries. But we do put a lot of pressure back on the schools, and we ask the schools a very simple question. Can you provide us with evidence that all your teachers accept that you're having an impact? And so suddenly the schools then have to own the data because we want to hear their interpretation. We never ask them for their data, which is what happens in your country. We ask them for their interpretations. And it's the quality of those interpretations that make the difference to kids' lives regularly. So that's what we care about. That's what we monitor. And sometimes the evidence isn't good enough. So we help the schools come up with better evidence, such from the interpretation of the test scores, from what happens in the classroom. And we never accept just doing it. There is a quality element. It does require good leaders. In the early days, we probably lost 70% of our school leaders because it was hard to have those conversations. And now we've got a lot better at helping school leaders conduct those conversations about what high impact evidence means. We've got to, the thing that drives me in this whole thing, we've got to recognize the expertise that's out there. And so often we come up with policies that deny that expertise and try and get around it. And we wonder why teachers don't accept it.
So, Dr. Hattie, this might be a tough question to answer, but you have so much knowledge and you've done all this research. If in talking to our audience, you're talking to a classroom teacher, let's say a elementary school teacher or a high school teacher, and you had to give them one piece of advice, like, where do I start? What should I do to just make a difference in my classroom and perhaps in the culture of my school?
Can I be greedy?
What would you suggest that they do?
All right.
Sure.
1.5.
You too. Or 1.5.
I want
maybe.
the teacher to walk into the classroom tomorrow and say in their mind, my job here is to evaluate my impact. If they do that, the kids are the beneficiaries. The 1.5 thing, the half thing I want them to do is spend 15 minutes with one student and ask about their experience of learning. And my goodness, it's really informative when they do that, because often kids think learning is sitting up straight, watching the teacher, listening to the teacher doing the work. That ain't learning at all.
No.
15 minutes about learning.
No. And neither is getting grades.
No.
I said neither is getting grades. That's
1.5
not learning.
things, and that's where we start all the time.
So stop with the compliance and start with the learning, like understanding what real learning is.
Like I'm sufficiently old in the teeth now that I don't want to hear another discussion about teaching. I don't want to have another workshop about a teaching method or go and see another resource or look at another website or get another app, because all that is distracting from what really matters. How do the kids experience learning? What's their notion of learning? How do they understand it? And wow, it's our job to teach them that stuff. It's about the actions and the consequences of what we do that's important, the impact of what we do. And we've got to stop thinking about the business is coming up with better teaching methods. It's all about learning. It's all about the impact. And hey, look, the teachers are the only people in the room paid. If it ain't working, they have to change.
Yeah. Amen to that. All right. Well, boy, we could talk to
all
you
afternoon
all
down
night
there
here, but we're gonna all afternoon down under. Oi, oi, oi. We are going to switch gears with you right now, if you don't mind, and have a little fun with you. And we're going to play a little game that we're going to call Visible Australian Animal Learning right now with you. And we're going to do some meta-analysis of Australia's most dangerous animals and see how much you might know about some dangerous animals in Australia. And
yes,
Scott, do we
Dr. Hattie, you'll
have somebody that John's going to be
competing
playing for
a teacher in Northern California named Stacy Ryan. She's a third grade teacher. And if you're able to answer 2 out of the 3 questions correctly, Stacy will be awarded a free download of an album by a ridiculously popular edgy rock band called Rockin' the Standards, created by that one guy that's going to ask you the questions, Tim Bedley.
Let's go for Stacy.
Okay, let's go. Here we go. So you only got to get 2 out of 3 right. That's 67% or a D plus, right? In the statistical world. So your first question about visible Australian animal learning is the blue-ringed octopus.
Oh, yes, I've seen
quite dangerous. Have you heard of the blue-ringed octopus? Oh, wow. Okay, so you should do pretty well on this. Which of these is true of the blue-ringed octopus?
If they bite you, you have about 8 minutes before you're unconscious, unable to breathe, and then you die. The only antidote for their poison is a rare form of bacteria that can only be found in an Asian mushroom. Blue-ringed octopi often build a temporary home inside a piece of trash left on the beach. That's why on Australian beaches, litter collection is only done by prisoners on death row.
So your 3 choices of the blue-ringed octopus is that if they bite you about 8 minutes before you're going to die, there's only one antidote found, and it's in an Asian mushroom, and they hide inside pieces of trash. And so therefore you have prisoners that are picking up
most of
trash.
us learn about how many minutes we have from most venomous things in Australia. I'd have to go with the 8 minutes.
8 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, but it's not the 8-minute answer. Kind of tricked you on that one. It's close. You're not going to die after 8 minutes because they do have an antidote for the venom that has been discovered. The actual right answer is that they hide in pieces of trash, and so they only have prisoners on death row.
Oh, no, that's unfair because we don't have death row in Australia, so therefore they should always be out there. We should have greater incidence of deaths from octopi.
There you go.
That was kind of a trick question.
I wondered about that. I don't know. Maybe.
Come on, Stacey. We got to get 2 out of 2 now.
Okay. You're going to get 2 out of 2. Okay. Next question, number 2. The funnel web spider is extremely dangerous to humans.
Interestingly, this morning they discovered a second variety of them.
Oh, my goodness. You should be teaching us this stuff. If you ever run across one of these creatures, you should know this.
They won't bite you just once. They will bite you over and over and over and over again. Unfortunately, there is no anti-venom available. If you're bitten, you will die. Fortunately, the spider only bites people who reek of extreme body odor. So be sure to shower before venturing into funnel web territory.
All right. So your 3 choices are they bite you repeatedly, or there is no anti-venom available, or that they only bite people who are rather stinky.
In Sydney and a place in northern New South Wales. The antivenom was discovered about 15 years ago, so before then you did die, so that rules out B. They can jump as high as you can, and they do like to bite if they're disturbed many times, so I'd have to go with A. Come on, Stacey.
Yeah. You've got to go with A, and A is correct.
Halfway there.
Yeah. The studio audience is going crazy, but we can't hear them right now. They're in the margin. All right. So now your last question is, have you ever seen a bird-eating spider? Yes, that's right. Australia boasts the most intimidating spider on Earth. Which of these is true of the bird-eating spider?
It can grow to be as large
is it A?
as a serving platter. It can make some very unusual sounds, including barking and moaning. This spider could kill a cat or dog and will often kill and eat rodents, including frogs.
Well, I've never heard of this particular spider, so it's a random guess.
Okay, well, you've got three choices, and we might have to give you some help on this one. It's as large as a serving platter. So that would be like that big, right? Okay. And it can make sounds like barking and moaning, or it could kill a cat, dog, or and it often kills and eats rodents and frogs. Are you sure?
You're telling me something, aren't you?
All right.
You're right. It is C. Yes. Woo! Yes. Just choose C, right? On multiple choice questions. All right.
Well,
so Scott,
Dr. Hattie, you got
Dr.
2
Hattie
out of 3 correct. That's good enough to be a winner.
I'll take it.
Congratulations. You won absolutely nothing. But Stacy in Northern California just won a free download of Rockin' the Standards rock album for 2nd through 6th graders.
So great job. And I would not have been able to get any of those right. So the fact that you could get 2 out of 3 right, you're doing great. And why don't you tell our audience how they can connect with you in the future and learn more, because there is a lot more to learn from you than what we just captured in this very short show.
There is a website called Visible Learning Plus. And that has quite a lot of resources on it and videos and all that kind of stuff, and it's all free and it's all available. So look up Visible Learning Plus, all one word. And the other way is I'm only an email away, and I really do welcome anyone who wants to contact. I'm pretty good at delivering, and you're easy to find me at the University of Melbourne with J Hattie at universityofmelbourne.edu.au. I look forward to talking to anyone.
Wow, that's very generous of you, Dr. Hattie. I'm sure that you're going to be hearing from some people.
We really appreciate you not only fighting your way through to get on the show with the technical issues, but just coming on and sharing with our audience and all the work that you're doing to help us as teachers and give us some direction and where we're going as we try to impact the lives of our students.
And thanks for a great show, Tim and Scott.
Mom and Dad,
thank you so much, and thanks for watching.
Kids walking to school or going outside the home are the parents in the most affluent communities. Wow, we done something wrong.
So true. So true. Hey, well, thank you again, Dr. Hattie. It's great to talk to you, and we really appreciate it. I couldn't say goodbye without saying, 2 of our favorite people. I don't know how well you know them or have heard of them or know them, is Gail and Joan, the 2 sisters who came up with they do something called the Daily 5. Have you heard of them?
No.
They do this language arts structure, and they talk about you all the time, and they really value your research. And so I have to say hi for them, because I know they would love to talk to you sometime, I'm sure.
Great. As soon as I get off this, I'll look up the Daily 5.
Okay.
Yeah. Any relation to John Daly? No.
You're in the golf.
Okay. See you guys.
All right. Take care.
So much.